Great. Thanks, Chris. Good morning, Commissioners. As part of our ongoing celebration of the 50th anniversary of the Coastal Act, I'm excited to be here today to highlight examples of the Commission's work protecting open space, agricultural lands, and sensitive coastal habitats over the past 50 years, and to share a little bit more about the Commission's role in putting coastal lands into permanent protection. Next slide, please. Many of the Coastal Act's core policies specifically recognize the importance of protecting environmentally sensitive habitat areas, agricultural lands, scenic viewsheds, wetlands, and open space resources. 50 years later, these policies continue to guide coastal planning and remain just as relevant today. Next slide, please. One of the key ways the Commission implements these policies is by placing lands into permanent protection. This is particularly important along California's coast, where development pressure remains high and many natural and agricultural landscapes have already been fragmented or lost. The lands protected through the Commission's programs often contain environmentally sensitive habitat areas, wetlands, wildlife corridors, agricultural resources, and scenic open space that contributes to the health and resilience of larger coastal ecosystems. Protecting these areas helps maintain habitat connectivity, supports biodiversity, preserves coastal landscapes, and strengthens ecological resilience over time. Permanent protection also provides certainty. Once a conservation easement is recorded or land is dedicated for conservation purposes, those protections remain in place regardless of future ownership changes. Over time, these individual protections accumulate into an interconnected network of conserved lands that helps safeguard California's coastal resources for future generations. Next slide, please. The Commission's permanent protection efforts help conserve a wide range of coastal resources. This includes environmentally sensitive habitat areas, wetlands, dunes, coastal bluffs, watersheds, and wildlife corridors that support biodiversity and climate resilience along the coast. Protecting open space and watersheds also helps reduce erosion, maintain natural landforms, and preserve California's iconic coastal scenery. Agricultural land protection is another important component of the Coastal Act. Coastal agriculture supports local food production, preserves rural landscapes and cultural heritage, and prevents urban sprawl. The Commission also works to preserve scenic viewsheds and undeveloped coastal landscapes that are central to California's coastal identity. Next slide, please. To implement Coastal Act policies, the Commission relies on a variety of permanent protection tools. These include open space and conservation easements, as well as fee title acquisitions through our Offer to Dedicate program and deed restrictions required in CDPs. Other tools include enforcement resolutions and long-term planning efforts carried out through local coastal programs. Permanent protection of coastal lands can occur through many different pathways, but all of these tools serve the same purpose, ensuring the long-term stewardship of important coastal resources. Next slide, please. This work does not happen in isolation. Permanent protection of the coast depends heavily on partnerships between the Commission, local governments, nonprofits, land trusts, tribal governments, state and federal agencies, and other conservation organizations. These partnerships are critical not only for securing protected lands, but also for managing, monitoring, and stewarding them over the long term. Next slide, please. Over the Commission's history, more than 72 government agencies and nonprofit organizations have partnered with us to protect coastal lands throughout California. Together, these efforts have resulted in more than 1,700 deed restrictions, acceptance of over 830 open space offers to dedicate, and the permanent protection of more than 11,900 acres of coastal resources statewide through the Commission's Offer to Dedicate program. Keep in mind that these are only protections secured through Commission-issued CDPs. Local governments also preserve significant areas of our coast through their own permitting in 90% of the coastal zone. Collectively, these individual protections have created a much larger network of conserved lands that help preserve California's coast. Next slide, please. So far, I've talked about the Commission's role in achieving permanent protection, but the real impact of this work is best understood on the ground. The protections we help secure take many different forms and occur in very different landscapes, from North Coast estuaries and redwood forests to Southern California coastal bluffs and lagoons. This map highlights just a few examples from across California that demonstrate the variety of conservation outcomes achieved over the past 50 years. Each site tells a different story. Some were protected through enforcement actions, others through permit requirements, local coastal program planning, or collaborative conservation efforts. As we travel from the North Coast to Southern California, you'll see how the Commission has used a variety of tools to protect sensitive habitats, preserve open space, and secure permanent conservation outcomes. Next slide, please. Let's begin our road trip in California's North Coast at Reservation Ranch near the Smith River Estuary, one of the most ecologically important coastal watersheds in the state. Over several decades, extensive unpermitted development occurred on the property, including grading, road construction, wetland filling, and seasonal damming of waterways. These activities damaged wetlands and riparian habitat, degraded water quality, and eliminated critical habitat for salmon, birds, invertebrates, and other wildlife. Reservation Ranch also sits within an area central to the Tualatinini Nation and Elk Valley Rancheria since time immemorial, and these impacts directly affected culturally important species, waterways, and gathering areas. Through an enforcement resolution, the Commission worked to address these violations while also securing a long-term conservation outcome. As part of the Commission's consent order, the property owner agreed to, among many other environmentally beneficial actions, permanently protect 31 acres of ecologically and culturally significant land through both land dedications and recordation of conservation easements. The protected lands include riverfront forest, wetlands, native redwood and spruce habitat, creek mouths that function as wildlife corridors, and coastal blufftop habitat overlooking the Pacific Ocean. These areas are now protected through land dedications and conservation easements that prohibit future development and ensure the habitat remains protected in perpetuity. Reservation Ranch illustrates how the Commission's enforcement program can do more than just correct past violations. It can also create lasting conservation benefits that also protect coastal resources. Next slide, please. Continuing our trip down the coast, let's stop at Hearst Ranch on the Central Coast. This example highlights both the scale of some conservation outcomes and the role Commission decisions play in shaping them. At roughly 82,000 acres, Hearst Ranch is one of the largest privately owned coastal properties in California. The ranch includes 18 miles of coastline, extensive sensitive habitat, scenic landscapes, and working agricultural lands that have remained in production for generations. For decades, this property was the focus of major development proposals, including large resorts, golf courses, an airport, and even a yacht harbor. In 1998, more than 1,000 people attended a Coastal Commission hearing to oppose the Hearst Ranch resort proposal, which the Commission ultimately denied. While that denial itself did not permanently protect the ranch, it helped create the conditions for a different outcome. After years of negotiations, the state reached a landmark conservation agreement in 2005. As part of the deal, 1,500 acres on the coastal side of Highway 1 were transferred to state parks and Caltrans. At the same time, the State Coastal Conservancy and the Wildlife Conservation Board funded an 80,000-acre conservation easement that protects habitat, preserves sweeping coastal views, limits future development, and keeps the land in agricultural production. Today, the easement permanently protects one of California's most significant working landscapes and remains one of the largest conservation achievements on the California coast. Next slide, please. Hearst Ranch demonstrates how Commission actions can contribute to conservation on an enormous scale. But much of the Commission's day-to-day permanent protection work looks very different. Many of the places protected through the Commission's regulatory program are not thousands of acres in size. Instead, they are small parcels that contain a critical habitat feature, wildlife corridor, wetland, or other sensitive coastal resource. This example from Los Osos illustrates that point. As part of a CDP for a single-family home, the Commission required the dedication of a 0.21-acre conservation easement through its Offer to Dedicate program. Although small in size, the protected area contains environmentally sensitive maritime chaparral habitat occupied by the Moro shoulderband snail, a rare species found only within a small portion of San Luis Obispo County. Because the species has such a limited range, even small habitat losses can have significant consequences for its long-term survival. This example reminds us that conservation value is not measured solely in acres. In this case, protecting less than a quarter acre helped secure habitat for a species found nowhere else in the world. Next slide, please. Now, let's look at a different type of conservation success, one that highlights how local coastal program provisions and long-term planning can guide development and conserve land across an entire landscape. The Santa Monica Mountains provide a good example. Long before the Coastal Act, Large portions of the mountains had been subdivided into thousands of small lots with little regard for steep terrain, sensitive habitats, natural drainage patterns, or wildfire risk. Many of these lots could technically be developed, but doing so would require extensive grading, vegetation removal, and infrastructure. As development pressure increased, it became clear that creating additional subdivisions made little sense when so many existing lots were already constrained. Through permit conditions, the Commission developed what became the Transfer of Development Credit, or TDC, program. Under this approach, property owners seeking to subdivide or intensify development were required to retire existing subdivision lots, also known as donor lots, through the Commission's Offer to Dedicate program, placing them into permanent protection. This shifted development towards more suitable locations while also reducing pressure on steep, fire-prone, and ecologically sensitive lands. The Commission also adopted grading and slope area development limits that tied allowable development intensity to site conditions, further encouraging growth in appropriate locations while protecting habitat and open space. These policies were eventually formalized in the Malibu and Santa Monica Mountains local coastal programs, transforming them from permit conditions into long-term planning frameworks. This example shows how thoughtful planning provisions can guide development, protect habitat, and conserve open space at a landscape scale. To date, the TDC program today has protected over 500 lots. Next slide, please. We've finally reached the end of our road trip in San Diego. I wanted to conclude with an example that highlights how the Commission often protects important landscapes one piece at a time. At Botaquitos Lagoon in Carlsbad, 6 different permits issued across several decades included conditions requiring offers to dedicate open space and habitat areas. Next slide, please. These protected areas ranged from just 1 acre to nearly 60 acres. Individually, many of these dedications may not seem especially significant, but when you look at them together, however, they tell a different story. Those 6 permits have protected more than 113 acres of the lagoon, creating a connected network of conserved habitat that supports the health of the lagoon ecosystem and protects valuable southern maritime chaparral habitat. In many ways, this example reflects the majority of the Commission's day-to-day permanent protection work. Conservation is not always achieved through a single large acquisition or landmark project. More often, it happens incrementally through hundreds of individual permit decisions that each protect a small but important piece of California's coast. Over time, those pieces add up to something much larger than any one project alone. Next slide, please. Over the past 50 years, California has made remarkable progress in protecting its coastline. Through permanent protection tools, long-term planning, and strong partnerships, the Commission and its many collaborators have helped conserve thousands of acres of open space, agricultural lands, wetlands, and sensitive coastal habitats throughout the state. The stories we looked at today range from a fraction of an acre of habitat to protect a rare snail to one of the largest conservation easements on the California coast. Together, they illustrate an important lesson. Lasting conservation is built through thousands of decisions, large and small, that collectively shapes a more resilient future for the California coast. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sydney. And now we have our public access spotlight. This month, we are highlighting the public access way at Whispering Sands Beach in the La Jolla area of the city of San Diego. And I'm going to turn it over to Linda and Rosie for the spotlight.
Thank you. Greetings, commissioners and the general public. We're here again with our Spotlight on Public Access series, which highlights access improvements required by the Coastal Commission. This includes everything from ADA accessible paths to beach staircases, picnic tables, restrooms, viewing platforms, and more. For those in the audience who are not aware, we are sharing videos of these accessways and associate amenities at the Commission's monthly hearings. If you want to view these videos again, you can find them on social media, such as Instagram and YouTube, or on the Commission's website under the 50th anniversary banner. Now I'll turn it over to Public Access Program Manager, Linda Lachlan.
Hello again. So as Rosie just said, and thank you, Rosie, for that introduction, this month's spotlight is on an access path to Whispering Sands Beach in the San Diego neighborhood of La Jolla. This accessway is about 20 minutes north of here and about a mile south of La Jolla Cove, which you'll hear more about later this morning. And please don't worry, Whispering Sands is not a hotspot for sea lions. Thanks to the Coastal Commission, there was a paved ADA accessway pathway that runs along a condominium complex at 100 Coast Boulevard. This path leads to a viewpoint and a stairway down to a sandy shoreline. The Commission approved this condominium complex with public access conditions in 1974, quite a long time ago. This was just the third permit issued by the agency that required a vertical public access way to the shoreline. The Commission sometimes requires a permit applicant to record what's known as an offer to dedicate, we call it an OTD, for public access to and along the coast. An OTD is a legal document preserving an access easement for future public use. To date, permit holders have recorded 196 OTDs for vertical easements to the shoreline. However, just because a permittee records an OTD doesn't mean an accessway will be built immediately. Rarely does the Commission require a property owner to actually construct the accessway, as it did in this 31-unit condominium development. Most often, a government agency or nonprofit takes on the responsibility of building and operating the accessway. So far, of these 196 OTDs, about 120 public accessways have been opened. Commission staff continue to explore options for turning the remaining OTDs in actual accessways. However, many of these easements face difficulties, including being located on very steep cliffs or in an area that does not yet connect to public land. Another obstacle to opening and maintaining a public access easement is private encroachments. Landowners occasionally install fences or tamper with signage that block or discourage access. Our enforcement unit works to address these cases. For example, this Whispering Sands accessway was subject to an enforcement action several years back when staff discovered that the public access signage had been removed. As you'll see in the upcoming video, these signs have been reinstalled and they direct the public to the walkway and beach. So next up, Chris, please roll the videos.
Did you know about this hidden beach entrance? Just north of Marine Street Beach, this little-known pathway leads to Whispering Sands Beach. Located at 100 Coast Boulevard, look for the public accessway signs at the entrance of the walkway. Follow the path in between the apartment buildings, and at the end, you will find a staircase leading you directly to the sand. There is free street parking along Coast Boulevard or in the surrounding neighborhoods. This wide, sandy beach is perfect for sunbathing or surfing. On a busy day, this alternate entrance can help you get down to the beach in no time. Thanks to the California Coastal Act, spots like this stay public. Save this for your next beach day.
¿Sabías que existe esta entrada secreta a la playa? Justo al norte de la playa de Marine Street, este sendero poco conocido conduce a la playa de Whispering Sands. Ubicada en número 100 Coast Boulevard, busca las señales de acceso público en la entrada del sendero. Sigue el camino entre los edificios de apartamentos y al final encontrarás una escalera que te llevará directamente a la arena. Hay un estacionamiento gratuito en la calle o a lo largo de Coast Boulevard o en los vecindarios cercanos. Esta amplia playa de arena es perfecta para tomar el sol o surfear. En un día concurrido, esta entrada alternativa te dejará llegar a la playa rápidamente. Gracias a la Ley Costera de California, lugares como este siguen siendo de acceso público. Recuerda este lugar para tu próximo día en la playa.
Thank you so much, Linda and Rosie.